What's up, Heat fans? Welcome to the Heat Report by Chad Sports. I am Nic Rohloff. On today's show, we are going to talk about three players because Bleacher Report dropped an article naming three trade targets for the Miami Heat, and these were the three players named: Damian Lillard, Myles Turner, and Brandon Ingram. I have my thoughts, and before we get into my thoughts, are you ready for the season to get underway? I know I am. October 23rd against the Orlando Magic can't come sooner. I'm fired up. Show me you're fired up by liking today's video. The record of our likes last week was 220. Let's beat it. Let's get to 250 likes on this video because it is going to be a very fun season, and I hope that you guys are as excited as I am. All right, let's get into today's show now because even though that these three names, Damian Lillard, Myles Turner, Brandon Ingram, were named as potential Heat trade targets, obviously they are not going to happen before the season. They are just potential rumors and targets that Miami could look at during the season at the NBA trade deadline. So as we go through this video and talk about these guys, I want you all to know that we are not talking about right now. We are talking about in January or February when the Heat potentially could be looking to buy at the deadline. And the first player that we are going to talk about is Damian Lillard, the guy that has been heavily linked to the Miami Heat in the past, obviously in the crazy 2023 offseason before he went to the Milwaukee Bucks. Lillard had an interesting year in his first season as a Buck. He was, in my opinion, not as good, not as comfortable as he usually is on the basketball court. A lot of things going on off the court for him in his family life, obviously adjusting to a new city. I don't think he really wanted to live in Milwaukee. He wanted to be in Miami. So it was a little bit of a different shock to him, if you will. And he still put up good numbers, though. And then we all know when the playoffs came around, and Giannis was out for the Bucks, and he had to really take control of that Bucks team against the Pacers in the first round of the playoffs. He dominated, averaging more than 30 points per game, shooting more than 40% from three. He looked like the Damian Lillard of old. And you might be asking to yourself, well, is there even a chance that Damian Lillard gets dealt? And I think there is a very actual avenue and pathway to where this could happen. It's very similar to what I believe with Kawhi Leonard in Los Angeles. They obviously don't want to deal these veterans that they're paying a lot of money to. They're top players in the NBA. But if an injury happens in Milwaukee or they just get off to a terrible start and never are able to recover, there is a legit chance they blow it up. They are a very old, experienced roster in Milwaukee. Lillard, Giannis, Bobby Portis, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez. Like, if you are bad or if Giannis suffers a catastrophic injury or Chris Middleton or Lopez and they're just a bad basketball team, why not flip Damian Lillard at the deadline for assets because your team is going nowhere and you obviously have missed your window with the Damian Lillard-Giannis situation? So I think it could happen. Is it likely? No, but I do think it's possible. But on the Miami Heat side of this all, should they even spin the block on Damian Lillard? Maybe we can have a different conversation about this in January and February. But ideally, you don't need Damian Lillard. You traded for Terry Rozier last year to not be Damian Lillard because you obviously know that they're not even the same atmosphere of basketball players. But ideally, your backcourt of Tyler Hero and Terry Rozier are able to do enough to make it feel like you don't need to trade them for Damian Lillard. Because remember, if a trade happened for Lillard in the offseason, you would have given away Hero, likely Jaime Jaquez Jr., and Nikola Jovic. And you wouldn't have Hero or Rozier on the team right now, but you'd have Dame. So ideally, when you look back and potentially have an idea of trading for Lillard, you really don't deem it necessary because Rozier and Hero combined are giving you the same type of production and quality minutes that you would get from Damian Lillard in the first place. Before we move on in today's show, drop a name for me. Name your top Heat trade target during the season right now. Let me know who you want the Heat to trade for this year. Any position, any player. Drop a name for me down in the comment section. I will talk about Brandon Ingram here before we move on to Myles Turner at the end of today's show, because I do have some thoughts on Brandon Ingram, but we've talked about BI at nauseum this offseason, and if you are someone just joining us, make sure you subscribe to the channel, but make sure you also go back and watch some of our Brandon Ingram videos where my thoughts are more displayed in a full episode. But I am kind of out on Brandon Ingram, right? Like I'm passing on BI. Why? It's because he's a free agent next year, and if he's a free agent, well, that means that he wants to get paid. And if he wants to get paid, what are you willing to pay him? And I'm not willing to give him $50 million a year because that's what he wants. He wants a 4-year, $200 million deal. I'm out on that. I'd give him 4 for 160. I'd give him somewhere close to OG Anunoby because that's the tier of players he is in. He is not in the category of, man, a top 2 player on a championship contending team. I don't believe that, and I don't think people around the league believe that. And I'm only paying $50+ million to someone if I believe they can be a top 2 player on a championship winning team. I don't think Brandon Ingram is that guy. So for that reason, I'm not trading assets to New Orleans to get BI, knowing that he could either walk in free agency or you have to pay him a big contract that it's probably not worth. All right, we're going to get to Myles Turner here in just a second. But we are sponsored by Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in North America. And you got to get started with Prize Picks today. They make watching your favorite sports and the sports action even more fun. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. So your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, well, guess what? Prize Picks keeps your lineup alive. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to bigger payouts, like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. It's the best way to make money during basketball, football season. Which players are going off, which players aren't. Make your picks so easy. Pick more or less in less than 60 seconds, and you can have an entry. And you can play in so many different ways. Daily, weekly, season-long, like this one right here. More than Bam Adebayo, 9.9 rebounds per game. More than Jalen Brunson, 6.8 assists per game. And then less than Zachary Risachet, 10.2 points per game. Use your hoops knowledge to earn some serious cash this upcoming season. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to get the $50. It's guaranteed. Shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's video. The link is in the description and comments of today's show. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, moving on now. Let's talk about Myles Turner because this one is a lot more interesting, in my opinion, in terms of potentially being a Miami Heat trade target and how it impacts what the Heat have done this offseason as well. Turner is someone who has been really, really good in the past for the Pacers, protecting the rim, spacing the floor. He's honestly what you'd probably want from Kel'el Ware. And here's what Bleacher Report said on Turner. Winters in Miami would feel a little different than they do in Indiana, and the Heat could do some exciting stuff on both ends with Turner and Bam Adebayo manning the front court spots. Adebayo's perimeter mobility would pair perfectly with Turner's rim protection, and the spacing Turner offers as a shooter would bring offensive dimensions the Heat have rarely enjoyed. And he's not wrong, and Bleacher Report isn't wrong about the pairing defensively, nor the offensive versatility they would have. And Myles Turner is someone that I have always liked. And when Heat fans always say to me in the comment section on our live shows, we need another big, we need to add a big to this group, we're too small, who should we get? Myles Turner is always the #1 guy I think of because he's a 7-footer that can knock down threes at an efficient rate, protect the rim and average 2+ blocks a game. And it would work next to Bam offensively because they wouldn't both be clogging the paint. But with Bam Adebayo's 3-point improvement, maybe it's not as big as a deal as we once thought. And that's why the selection of Kel'el Ware was so perfect for Miami this last NBA draft, because it might take a little bit. It might. But that is the reason why you drafted Kel'el Ware, to give you what Myles Turner gives Indiana right now. Rim protection, lob threat, and the ability to space the floor with Bam Adebayo, as Kel'el Ware has the ability to develop a solid jump shot that Myles Turner also has. So to me, it's interesting of maybe you make a deal for Myles Turner, maybe you don't, because you believe Kel'el Ware will ultimately develop into that player. We're going to finish the conversation on Kel'el Ware in just a second, but let me know, would you trade for Myles Turner? Be honest with me down in the comments section. Be Pat Riley. What would you do? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Looking at the numbers real quick about Myles Turner, this is the type of stuff that you could dream about in terms of getting Kel'el Ware to this level. And some people might say Kel'el Ware has no ceiling and I can't wait to see what he ultimately blossoms into. I promise you one thing, folks. If Kel'el Ware is able to have a Myles Turner career, that would be as good as you could possibly hope. Some people might hope for an all-NBA center. I'm just hoping for Myles Turner. Because if Kel'el Ware can consistently give you 12-plus points per game, 2-plus blocks per game, shooting 35% from 3 and 50% from the field while grabbing 8 boards a game like Myles Turner has done over the last 4 seasons, well, guess what? That would be a dream come true next to Bam Adebayo. It really, really would. He is the perfect big next to Bam. And that's why this is such a twofold conversation in terms of acquiring Myles Turner. Because is he the best big for Bam Adebayo to pair with? Absolutely. And if he becomes available via trade and Indiana struggles and they don't want to pay him long term, well, should Miami go make that deal? It would stunt the growth of Kel'el Ware. Maybe you have to trade Kel'el Ware in that deal to Indiana. So that's the type of thing that's interesting here. Like, you can guarantee yourself the Myles Turner type, but very much older, or you can take the gamble and roll the dice on your development of Kel'el Ware as a young man. That's where it gets really interesting on how the Heat organization wants to go about this. And if Myles Turner is available, do they ultimately pursue him? Or do they say, you know what, we're going to stick with Kel'el and see what we got? But to round out and finish the show here, I do think that the Heat might be buying at the trade deadline when we get into next February, early February. But I don't want any of these guys right now. I will say, like, I know it won't happen, but right now I want to see how the season goes. I want to see how Terry, Tyler, Jimmy, Jovic, Bam work as a starting unit. How Jaime Jaquez Jr. comes off the bench as a sixth man. There's a realistic scenario here, folks, where the Heat are cooking and they're a top 4 seed in the East, and maybe they go out and make a trade to get some insurance on the bench or strengthen that unit. Or maybe they don't because they're playing such good basketball. It's always intriguing to see how the season goes. And I know we made a lot of videos this offseason, talked about how they need to make a move. But realistically, with Bam Adebayo's improvement on the three-point shot, like, I really think there's a chance this team really explodes this year and is impressive. So I kind of want to see how it goes first before we come out here and say the Heat need to make these trades. After the first couple weeks of the season, when we watch this team play and see what the record is through the first 10, 15, 20 games, then maybe we can start addressing what needs to happen for this squad in terms of making adjustments to the roster, either adding a player or trading away players. But we'll have to wait and see, and that's kind of how the game I'm in. All right, make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we're still dropping daily content, but we're also making sure you are covered on everything around the Heat and also being live for almost every Heat basketball game when the regular season tips off. So join us here at the channel because it's going to be a fun season.